had to get out of the high school because of all the baby boomers who were needing the space in the high school. And it was the state established a whole junior college program, a big one. And there was some thought then that you would attend the junior college for 2 years and then switch over to the University of Illinois, which would then become a junior and senior level university. That, of course, didn't happen in great numbers, but the junior colleges have certainly grown to be exactly what they should be for the community.
I first came here in 1966 and 1967. That was right after high school, Oakwood High School. And it was kind of a lost year. I took classes, I had no major, had no direction. It was a turbulent time back then. And so I went a year and just kind of wasted a year. And decided to join the military. And I did that, spent 4 years in the Air Force, 1 year in Vietnam. And I think that helped me grow up a little bit and to decide I want to try that college thing again. My family, none of my family have been to college, and they would push it, but they didn't really understand what that meant. I didn't either. So I came back after the military, went here in 1971 to 1973, majoring in electronics.
I started in 1949 as a student at then Danville Community College, DCC, and I went there 1 year and went on to William Jewell College and then finished up my degree at Illinois State. I got my master's at Indiana State, and at that time Mary Miller, the then president, called, and I had been teaching sciences, and she needed a botany and a zoology teacher. And so I started in 1961 in the teaching part-time at night, which probably 80% of our instructors were nighttime, part-time teachers. And then when we moved out here in 1966, I was one of 4 of the original full-time teachers: Marilyn Satterwhite, Wilbur Dixon, myself, and the president at one time, Bill Langus. I couldn't think. Bill Langus. And the next year, I think we hired about 30 or 35 teachers. So it was a real experience to be out here. And then after I retired from the college in 1992 and 1993, I ran for a trustee out here and had that position for 24 years. So
I became involved in the community college because Lou was on the school board, and he was on it at a time when they were needing to move the college out of the high school. And as I told Dr. Nacko once, I distinctly remember sitting in synagogue one Friday night with Dr. Schaefer, who was head of the VA, behind Lou, and he leaned over to Lou's right shoulder and he said, "You know, Lou, I know you're looking for a place to put the community college." He said, "We're going to vacate the front 7 buildings on the VA campus. You might consider using those for a college campus." I remember that happening that Friday night. And it was after that that the possibility of moving out here became a reality.
she was something else. I mean, they threw the mold away when they made her, because and I always joke about how I got the job. She lived in what then was the Holland Apartments, and there was a restaurant at the first floor called the Holland Inn, and my mother was the one of the cashiers during the morning, and so she and Miss Miller would have a cup of coffee, and I just completed my master's, and she said to Miss Miller, she told me that I got my master's degree and so on and so forth. And she said, "Well, he teaches science, doesn't he?" And I said, "Yes, yeah." So she called me And she said, well, I'll call him. Called me in. She says, I need a teacher of botany and zoology. She said, are you interested? And I said, well, definitely. But I said, Miss Miller, I think it's zoology and not zoology. She says, I knew that. I just wanted to see if you did, and you're hired. And that's the truth.
It's really important that we have a community college. It's obvious by all the offerings that you have at the community college that it's serving a real purpose in this town, helping students who want more education, helping people who want careers, and obviously helping industry because you're training people for industry. I mean, I happen to know that we're desperate for welders, and you're training welders. So there you are.
Probably the first advice would be don't listen to us old people. Do something that you really are passionate about, no matter what it is. You'll find it. And you may not find it here. You may not find it in a four-year college or whatever, but eventually you're going to think, yeah, that's what he was talking about. That's what he meant. Find something that you want to do in life. You're going to work 40 years in your life, typically. And why be miserable? And so I wanted to be a forest ranger in high school. And I was going to go to Southern Illinois University and study forestry. And I thought, you know, I'd have a dog, Lassie, and I'd be in a fire tower, and I would be in the woods all the time. But I kind of investigated what a forest ranger does, and most of the time you're hired to be a policeman to corral visitors. And I didn't want to be a policeman. Now, I had a real close friend that ended up being a Danville policeman for his career, but I didn't want to do that. And I wanted to work around trees. And so I kind of, okay, I don't want to do that. So let's think of something else. And I've always been fascinated with radios and electronics, and this is before the computer days. And that always fascinated me. So I said, you know, I could probably do that, but I didn't know how to go about that. So I would tell a student to follow their heart, I guess. I mean, that kind of trite to say that, but follow your heart. You're going to find it eventually, and it may not be for 10 years, 20 years, but you're going to find it. And when you find it, you're going to know you found it. And I was lucky. I found mine early. The whole teaching thing. Why DACC? Because this place fosters students to have the wherewithal, the flexibility to do that. I mean, you can try and you can fail, and you know they won't kick you out. They'll talk to you. They'll encourage you, and you do it in a non-threatening environment. I mean, this place was non-threatening. I needed something that was non-threatening for a while, something that was comfortable. And Indiana State was comfortable. It's Indiana, that's a huge university, and even as an older student, I felt not threatened, but intimidated by the size. And I was a doctoral student. So DACC provides that comfort, that flexibility, that environment that you can kind of grow and grow up.
Well, Mary Miller called me in about a year after we'd been here, and she says, we're going to have a cross-country team, and you're going to be the coach. Didn't ask me if I wanted to be. She said, you're going to be the coach. I said, okay, because I had cross-country and ran track both in college and high school. And so luckily we had a really good team to start with, and some of those fellows are still around and still running. One of the cross-country runners from about the third year was Terry Hill, who became the coach here and did very well. He had national champions in team and women and men's individual national champions. So we did host the national cross-country meet in 1972. which were 350, 60 runners from 23 different states. And that was a perfect day, and everything went well. And we say that's the first national tournament ever held here in Danville.
Well, I'd say that he was proud of it because of how involved he'd been in the creation of the college and how involved he'd been in improving education in general and in his knowledge that the college does so much for so many people. It really was a perfect gift for him, a perfect honor, particularly at that time.
You know, working with the people, that was another thing about the college that really stood out and stands out today, and that's the people who work here. They're all enthused about their job. They are willing to go above and beyond and do the thing. Because you look at the national tournament, how many volunteers we have from the community and from the college, and I mean it's work. Those people really put it out.
It was, as I said, it was a bare place. I mean, the buildings were primarily hospital rooms or hospital wards for veterans. And another thing, my mother worked here for 30 years as the executive secretary to the chief of the VA. So I've been around this my whole life, this environment here. And the buildings were the transition. But still, I mean, it was gray, but they did have blackboards and they had school desks. So it was okay. I mean, learning is learning, but the instructors made it comfortable to learn. I mean, we didn't have a lot of the physical things. We didn't have a union. The union was in a small room in the basement of one of the buildings. I think it was building 10 or 9. The bookstore was in the basement of one of those buildings, very small. But still, it was a pretty cool environment. And then when I came back, still pretty much the same, but they had made a lot of improvements in 1971. That was only 4 years. But the physical plant was a lot nicer. I mean, I remember the administration building as being gray walls, and offices had no signs on them, and now look at it. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's still the same building.
I think one of the most amazing things about the foundation was 2 or 3 years ago, they set a goal of $2 million to raise. And then we had the dinner to indicate how much money we had gotten in, and the people who were on the main committee got up there and they said, well, how much do you think we raised? And it was over $10 million. And that, you know, that was just amazing, just amazing. I wasn't on the foundation board, I was on the college board, and I have to say, I was awestruck at that. That was something that will be in my memories for years and years.
The need for scholarships in this community is huge. There are so many deserving students who want to go to college, and it's so expensive. And families can't manage it all. And the idea of needing an education and then ending up deeply in debt is appalling. So if we can help, we help. You know, you get to the point when you're successful that you don't need one more sweater, one more coat. So why wouldn't you give it away? Why wouldn't you give away what you have? And that's how we've both felt. And education is primary in the list of things that we would give to.
Well, you know, that's a question that a lot of people don't ask because they know why. It's the gem of the city. I mean, the community, all the way around. Look at the good we've done. Look at how people. I don't think I've heard anybody speak negatively about the college and the things we do, like going up to Hoofston and going down to Georgetown and giving people an opportunity, young and old, to get a college education, or at least put their feet in the water and see if they want to swim. You know, because it's something that older people. I can't remember, but I remember one time we had a student here who was about close to 90 years old. It was the first time she'd been to college, and she was always in the library. She was always in the library. So that type of thing.
You know, you hearken back to what DJC, DACC did for me, and I told Jan, I said, I really need to do something for that college, because I may not have been here without this place. So we decided, and when you get to a certain age, you have to take distributions from your estate, and not just because of that. I mean, I really wanted to do it, but it's a tax advantage to donate to a college or a university. And I said, I've done enough for Indiana State at this point. I want to do something for DACC. So we agreed, and I mean, it's going to be continuing. We're not going to stop with that donation. It'll be something every year. But I thought it was important because it did so much for me, and I know it's got to do something like that for students that are here now. They may not know it yet. There's going to be a point in time where they realize that the place they started has a very important, it's an important part of your life. I mean, and you got to do something for them.
I was in the hallway with the administration building then, actually at the water fountain, getting a drink, getting ready to go back over to building 6 where the library and everything was. And there were students all around, a few teachers. We was kind of talking, and I heard this loud voice. He says, "Cheney, what do you think we are made of? Money?" I thought, "Oh, what's coming off?" And everybody looked at me then, and she says, "I'm not going to sign that requisition for that file folder divider that goes on your desk." Of course, it was $9.95. I said, "Well," she said, "that's a personal item. You're supposed to pay for that out of your own self." Okay. But I was really embarrassed, and so I went over to my office and sat down and kind of cooling down a little bit. And her secretary at that time was not Peggy Gardner, but before Peggy. Anyway, she came over and she said, "Miss Miller wants to see you in the office right now." So I told my secretary, "Well, get ready to pack everything out. I think I'm leaving." And I went over there, and the door was open. She said, "Come in and shut the door." So I did. And she says, "Sit down." She says, "I want to apologize." She says, "I did the worst thing that a manager could ever do is to tell somebody that in front of all those people that they did something wrong." And she says, "I really felt that was not a good way to go, because that was not an expensive item." She says, I trust your judgment." She says, "Is there anything else that you might need?" And I said, "Yeah, I need about 3 16mm projectors." She said, "Well, order them out." So that's another true story. That's just to show you, she was very firm, but she was very fair. And I wouldn't have been through all this process of being here if it hadn't been for her. So.
Well, obviously, coming so close to the scholarship presentation program, it would be last Friday when we presented almost 300 scholarships. I mean, I was standing there in a room full of winners. That's really exciting. In fact, when I drove out to the college on Friday morning prior to the program, I was almost in tears because I thought, what we do here is so fantastic. The input from the community, the support from the community for all these scholarships is amazing and essential and exciting and thrilling. And to see all these kids who want to be educated, be able to go to school and not go deeply in debt, it's a thrill. So I'd say my proudest moment was being asked to speak as a donor last Friday. I put a lot of effort and thought into that talk, and I hope I inspired somebody.
I just want to say that in all the years I've been here and the administrations that I've worked with and so forth, I think the presidents have all been outstanding, and the other administrators, you know, and you can see that when you, for example, our chief financial officer gets the highest ratings each time, and so on. It's something that the community really respects and recognizes, and we can continue to do that, and we will, I'm sure.
The scholarship is for students like Jerry that maybe started and stopped, maybe went out and did something in life, military, working, and then they realized that they want something different. They want a, not I dare say a better life, but a different life. After Vietnam, my whole focus was doing a job that was a hobby. And I tell students that today, that find something that's like a hobby, that Monday morning you don't complain about having to get up and go to work. And so this scholarship is kind of for those types of individuals that kind of are like me. And I know it's a totally different environment today, but I'm sure there are young people that don't really know what it means to go to a college, what kind of ramifications it has for their lives. So in our small way, we're hoping to help. If we help one student, we've been a success.
Our foundation was one of the smallest probably in the state, and yet probably one of the has the best endowment in the state. I look at schools 2 and 3 times our size that don't have the balance that we have in the foundation. And people, I look at some of the donors, the list of donors, and it amazes me that some people who you would never think would leave money to the college. You know, of course, we had the Julius Hagler thing, but we also have people like that funded the library, the people from Woodbury's, the Reeds, and just on and on and on. And they leave either land or they leave their trust or their endowments to the college. And it's really a pleasure to be on a board like that. And I don't feel like it's an obligation to go out and ask for money. I think it's a privilege, because when you go out, people are always very receptive. As I said, I've never heard a negative comment. So.
I would encourage somebody else to support the college because the need is so huge. There are so many students who want to go to college, who need to go to college to get ahead in the world, that would be the primary place I tell them. The secondary place would be the Boys and Girls Club. Anything that helps kids is essential when it comes to giving.